All right, guys. Today we're here to talk about the Montreal Canadiens, their season that's just been, and now that the draft is over and free agency has begun, how their team is starting to shape up after all of that. Last year, probably some people may have been surprised by how poorly they did, but I don't think many were. Like, we know this is sort of a rebuild of some sort for them. They finished, I believe it was 20, 28th overall. I'll double check that. Yeah, 28th overall with 31 wins and 68 points for the season. So, it, it was a season that had its goods and bads. Um, One of the big things that we'll probably talk about a lot in this video is their offense. That drove a lot of Montreal's success and the good parts of last season. That especially that top line, Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki taking big step forwards in their development. Ultimately, the loss of Cole Caulfield didn't help towards the back end of the season either, which is probably where they fell off a bit, and where the 28th overall finish sort of fell into place. So, yeah, look, overall, I don't think it's a terrible outcome for Montreal, who we know are in that sort of rebuild phase. They got the number one overall draft pick last season. This season they end up with the fifth overall. So that's just going to help this situation. They're building a young team, but they've still got a lot of pieces to go. So, what we saw last year was just real good development from the likes of Caulfield and Suzuki. Kirby Dack even chipped in. It was a great pickup and trying to resurge his career after, basically was thrown out of Chicago for not much. So yeah, look, good steps for their young lads last year. Disappointing overall. I think people would have expected them to finish a little bit higher, but I don't mind it for what it is. And I think if they can make some more pieces moving forward, which we'll talk about in a second, we should see an improvement. So yeah, last year was what it was. But yeah, I'll kick on off to Jaden to take us through the lineup as per cap friendly.
Yeah, so this is cap friendly. And a couple other sources have something somewhat similar to this, but yeah, your first line: Cole Caulfield, Suzuki, and Anderson. Pretty standard that Caulfield and Suzuki are going to be on your first line. Second line: Monahan, Dak, and Gallagher. Interesting to see Monahan such a low salary cap for how good he was in the past. Dak basically trying to prove himself. Gallagher overpaid, but still a good player. Then they brought in new Alex Newhook, yet to resign. Dvorak, and then Joel Amir. That's your third line. I could see Newhook playing higher. It honestly depends how chemistry works. Then their fourth line, an overpaid Hoffman that they've been trying to move for a while. I doubt they can move it, and they'll probably go to free agency at the end of this year. Then you got Evans and Slavkovsky. Obviously, Slavkovsky could play as high as first line. I would like him to be on first line. It would leak very defensively because that's not a very muscly or defensive line, but it's firepower. Defense,
Got to pay top six though.
yeah, yeah.
Let's just point
Wait,
that out.
that
Yeah,
that and power play. A man with that shot and whatnot, he has to play power play as well.
yeah, for
Defenders,
sure.
you got Matheson and Savard running out the top. You got Harris and Gooley on the second, and then Zakai and Kovacevic on the third. It's pretty lackluster defense. I know they just drafted Zakai's brother in this year's draft at 101 overall, who is a forward, not a defender, but thought it was just something to note there. Goalies, pretty horrible in regards to goaltending situation in my opinion, with Montebeau and Allen. You're looking at like what 3.5 or something like that goes against average, and zero point 0.9 or less than 0.9 on average for your goalies. So it's kind of like a 2A, 2B situation, in my opinion. If you're going to exit this rebuild, you've got to fix that goalie situation. Just some notable scratches: Harvey Pinard, Pitlick, and Weidman. These people obviously see time throughout the season just because of injuries and whatnot. And just some notable losses on the right side there. Jonathan Drouin signed to Columbus. Belzile goes to New York Rangers. Richard to Boston. Schooneman to Colorado. And Edmondson to traded to Washington. They also did retain some of Edmondson's salary there. So not too bad. They've got 10 million if you take out the Kerry Price LTIR. They've got about 10 million in cap at the moment. A couple overpaid players in Hoffman and Gallagher, but not nothing egregious. And then they're just lacking really defensive depth, goalies. They need a starting goalie and probably a first line, two defenders to knock down the other ones. And yeah, until they fix that, I can't see him improving this year. Just because they're going to put up a lot of goals, but they're going to concede too many goals. And when they run into defenses that stop their goal production, well, they're going to just concede the goals, and they're not going to be able to keep them to a 1-0 game or 2-1 type games. I feel like this is going to be 3-4 goals conceded on average for this team. So I don't know, the rebuild, retool, whatever you want to call it, looking good, but honestly, still a lot of work to do. But I do like the addition of New Hook. They've done good in the draft with Slavkovsky, now Ryan Backer as them. Probably won't play this year, but will develop into a good defender in the future. So it's looking good, but they're probably another year, maybe two away.
Yeah, it's really that defense. I think they've got an offense to take it, to a wild card race. Like if you look at their top nine, realistically, I think Slavskovsky should be he should be on either the first or second line there. I'd bring Gallagher down. Gallagher, if it wasn't for that 6.5 mil cap hit, which when he signed it probably wasn't the worst considering what he was playing. He was a 50 plus point player at the time. But it sort of just aged really poorly. But even if he's playing on the third, fourth line, Gallagher is still serviceable. I still see this as a pretty good top nine. Like that first line is really solid. If Dak can continue to improve and show that he's the player that people thought he was when he was drafted, that's just even better. So if you had a Monahan, Dak, and Slavskovsky line, those first two lines have the potential to be extremely dangerous. Or even if you move New Hook to the second line for Monahan. But yeah, like that have no issues with their offense. Yes, you can always improve on it. I'd love to see them move Mike Hoffman on. You could even say Dvorak for that cap hit, but I still don't mind him. Yeah, as you said, it all comes down to that defense and that goalie situation. This team can put up 5 goals, but they'll concede 6. And realistically, on this list right now, without going out and trading for a defender or signing a defender at free agency, this defense is not going to get it done. It's just not. And yep, they've signed Ryan Backer this year, and there was talks of whether or not he would potentially, but it doesn't look like it. Dare say he'll go away for a year and potentially next year come through. But outside of that, where else do they have anyone coming through? Now, obviously, the obvious solution here is a controversial one, in the Logan Malo one. Good player, put up fantastic numbers last season. Do you look at potentially bringing him into the lineup? I mean, yep, he did a terrible thing, and it was extremely stupid on him, and we know all of that, and I'm not going to justify any of that. He was an idiot, all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, Montreal, you've drafted him. He's still on your list. is there any reason that you don't give him a shot?
Well, they drafted
Because,
him knowing it. That's the thing. It's not like it
well,
happened
yeah,
after they drafted
exactly.
him. So they
No,
honestly should
no.
have no problem playing him, theoretically.
Well, that's the thought process, right? Like they knew who they was drafting when they drafted him. They knew, like it was fresh in everyone's mind. He had only just what a month prior to that pulled out of the draft, or said, "Please don't draft me," because of the situation. So yeah, they knew what they were getting into. They've got him there. It's been a couple of years now. Do you know? Do you forget what he did? No, of course you don't. Um, does it have to completely destroy his entire career? I don't know about that. That's the tough subject. But at the end of the day, Montreal, if no one signed him, yeah, it probably would have potentially ruined his entire career. But Montreal have drafted him. He's in their system. He's signed to a contract. I'm just looking at those numbers and looking at the team, the defense that they're putting out at the moment, and going, you have to at least give him a shot. Otherwise, what was the point drafting him and copying that absolute just uproar from everyone going, what the hell are you doing? If you were never gonna play the bloke, if you've pulled out, like you obviously had some sort of balls to do it. He's got an abundance of talent. Yep, it's still going to ruffle some feathers when he eventually does play, if you do decide to play him. But right now, the defense situation for Montreal is abysmal, and maybe it's worth giving them a shot because the issue is if they don't fix their defense and their goalie situation next season, they're not going to do much better. You know, they might finish anywhere between 22nd and 32nd. Like I doubt they'll go as low as that, but 22nd to maybe 27th or something like that. And you're going to waste another season of Cole Caulfield, another season of Nick Suzuki, um, Kirby Dack, Euro Slefskovsky, even though for him it's more of a development year, so it's not fully a waste. But you know, you're wasting years of those players who are starting to sort of get into their prime years. So yeah, I just for me, they've got to do something, and I probably would give him a chance and just see how he goes, and then perhaps try and get another player in terms of um a defenseman or even a goaltender to fix and to help Jake Allen out. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents. I know it's controversial, but yeah, they've got to do something.
No, it's right. I think the big situation that they're at the moment, like, sure, their defense is lacking, but their goaltending situation is poor. Um, like very, very poor in my opinion. Like 3.5 goals against average, .9 save average for both your goaltenders. I understand there's not much defense in front of it, but yeah, like Jake Allen's 32. Montembeau, the cheaper and younger one at 26, who's only on $1 million. So look, it's a cheap goaltending tandem, but I feel like you might have to fix that there as well as their defense. They've kind of done the opposite to a lot of teams where they're built from the top down and not from defense out. So, and it's kind of stinging them in the butt a bit because we do know that defensemen do go for premiums when it comes to trades and whatnot. So it's going to be harder for them to acquire those pieces. Um, you do have. Oh, I doubt they would ever do it, but do you have people like Eric Carlson and whatnot that are on some sort of trade blocks? It's not the type of defender that they need because obviously it's not a defender. But yeah, it's just I don't see the pieces that they're going to add on the market at the moment. Because the pieces that they need are all locked up on Stanley Cup contending type teams, and that's going to be the hard part. So they need to poach salary cap stricken teams that are really struggling with that. So I think LA is a little bit over the salary cap. I think there's like 6 teams at the moment that they could look at. You've got obviously Toronto always has cap problems, though they're looking at doing removing forwards. Tampa's close to the cap. You got, Vancouver, Pittsburgh, etc., Vegas, LA, like I mentioned. So these teams are kind of near the cap. Those are the type of teams you got to go for and find your defender. And honestly, with this type of defense, I agree that you got to try out like a Logan Malou or anybody else. I don't think he will be ready, but like a Rhinebacker, if he was ready, I wouldn't mind developing him in, just playing the whole season, even if it's on the third line, just get him minutes. I don't know what his body's like and whatnot, if he's prepared physically for it, but yeah. So I see probably like a 18th position at best overall in the league, at absolute best, this coming season. But it's probably going to be, like you said, from like 20th to 27th, 28th, somewhere around there. So do you build more draft picks for this one last year, or do you start? I feel like you start building your assets now. Go get that defender that you're going to sign for 4 or 5 years. That's going to be for this run in the future, and it's what New Jersey did with Hamilton. They got him. They weren't ready that year, but then they got better the next year. So I feel like that's what you got to do.
Yeah, I mean, do they go after someone like a Matt Dumba? Because like there's not too many defenders currently on the free agency list that you could sort of look to fill that role. I mean, that I'm talking, actual top four defenders. You've got a couple here that, like we know John Moore. He can fill that sort of seventh defender, bottom pair role if you needed him to, but he's older now. It's that there's not a lot of options out at free agency besides Dumba really. So it's looking like, and also is Dumba the defender that they need? That's the other question. But I think yeah they've got to do something now. I don't think you can just be like, oh, we'll just have another poor year and if we finish 27th, 28th again, we'll get the fifth overall. And because if that's your game plan, then you're just gonna be wasting years of, like I said, Caulfield, Suzuki,
Mm,
Dak even, and you don't want to be doing that. I mean, their forward section's only going to get better with Massar coming through as well. So yeah, that I feel like their top end's really, really heavy, and it's in a good position to go forward, but it's not going to go anywhere if they don't fix that back end.
mm.
So um, I feel like that's what they've got to look at this season. They can't wait. They can't just sit
Yeah,
there and go, oh, we'll
I
see how it
I
goes.
agree.
They need to get on it now. Otherwise, yeah, we'll be having the same conversation next season. Um, Basically saying, well, you've just wasted another season of everyone else. Let's see if Ryan Backer comes through, because you can't just put it on Ryan Backer to come into the side next season and turn everything around. It's not fair on a first year player. And yeah, so they need to do something. They need to go out and either trade for a defender or yeah, look at maybe a
Yeah.
Matt Dumba.
Well, I think
Um,
like highlighting now, like I think they realized their issues with their goaltending situation. Like they hired well not hired, drafted three goaltenders in this draft. So they've highlighted that that's a key thing that they don't have the prospects of depth for in their organization. So they've highlighted that. That's one area they've focused on in this draft. But you look at their draft, they've got Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, and Slavkovsky. That's your first line. So they've drafted a first line essentially. Then you've got this season they've done Ryan Backer, and then you do have that Logan Milu option as well. So they've basically got a full first line there. You got your first line forwards and basically your first line D in regards to prospects there. So I don't think you need to keep getting more and more prospects in that regards, because I feel like you've basically drafted a whole entire first line in forwards and defense, and now they've gone and used their number 69 overall to get a goalie in Fowler. They got Miller and Volokin in regards to goaltenders this year. So it's really just adding those semi-veteran, probably 24 to 27 age defenders. In my opinion, I feel like that's what you're looking for now. You probably only need to add 2 of them, and your team's looking completely different because then you have Brian Backer coming in next year. Whatever you do with Logan Milou, and that's 4 defenders, and then you got your depth that because these aren't bad defenders. These they definitely do deserve to be in NHL, but you just need a little bit better. And if you add just those 2 pieces, I think this team looks completely different, completely overhauled, and then it's just your goaltending situation and what's going on there. So it's not going to take much. They have the cap space. They got 10 million. I know they've been trying to get rid of Hoffman, but that's 4.5 million there. You know, they're looking at you basically got like 14 million in free cap space if you could get rid of Hoffman. And you can buy 2 $7 million defenders in a sense with that. But we'll have to see if they
They've
do.
got to re-sign Newhook as well,
Oh,
but
yeah,
yeah, depending what he takes.
yeah. But yeah, you got New Hawk as well. But obviously you'd be trading out assets as well to acquire. So they don't have much dead cap. It expires this year as well. There's only 2.5 million in dead cap, and it expires this year. So they've got a lot of cap going forward. And I feel like this is the year you pick up one of the key pieces, and then you pick up the next key piece next year, and next year's your year. That's how I would. That's how I plan it, and I would do it.
No, I agree with you there. Yeah, I just don't want to see them. I just don't want to see them do nothing because I feel like if they do nothing, then they're just going to waste the season.
Yeah.
So as long as we see them make inroads and make a couple of moves to improve that back end, I think, and that blue line, I think that yeah, this is definitely a team that has the offensive capabilities to compete for a wild card. They just need to hone in on that blue line.
Mm. Well, I think this team would have been should have been one of the best front runners for like Ryan Graves type of person. Maybe even like a Damon Severson.
Probably
And
what they need, right? That
I feel
big
like those are the defenders
defender.
that they need. Well, the style, the type, the salary wise, you know, less than 7 million. I feel like that fits in what they were looking for. They obviously didn't get them, but that's kind of what you want. That second line, maybe first line defending defenseman. But other than that, I think that's all for me there.
Oh, that's it. I think yeah, look, I think if you're a Montreal fan, you've got a lot to be excited about. You've got some serious talent on that list. It's just, yeah, it's going to be up to management now. I think that's what it comes down to. Unless, of course, coaching turns this this defense and the goaltenders into absolute superstars, and then hey,
Mm.
you know, you're probably not going to have any issues because, as we said, that offense is good enough to take you um, to a wild card spot. So, yeah, let's see what Montreal can do in the 2023-24 season. It'll be interesting, but I definitely think they're headed in the right direction. It's just going to be on management now to make those moves ultimately.
Yeah. Well, 3 of their, like, you know, you got Boston, Tampa, and Toronto probably taking a step back, maybe in regards to what they did last year. But I still probably see this team finishing last in their division, even though I don't see it being as bad as it was this year. I think it'll be quite closer. They'll be much more competitive. Granted, players have to stay healthy. But yeah, well, I guess that's done for me there. Leave a like on the video. Comment below on what you think of the Montreal Canadiens. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And yeah, just leave a comment what you think the prospects going forward for Montreal is going to do. Are they developing Slapkowski right? Are they going to play Logan Milou or not? And yeah, just leave a comment below. Anyway, till next time. Cheers, guys.